All right, let's jump right in. We're about to take a tour through the wild, sometimes chaotic, but always fascinating world of building software. Think of this as your survival guide, how an idea turns into the app on your phone without, everything catching on fire.
You know the feeling, right? You're hyped for a new app. It finally launches, and it's a buggy mess. Or you read about some government website that cost millions more than it was supposed to. So what is going on? The answer and the solution is all about something called software project management.
In this slide, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Building software is just not like building a bridge. A bridge is tangible. You can see it. You can touch it. Its final form is super clearly defined from the get-go. But software? It's just code. It's invisible. And the final product? Well, that often changes and evolves as you go. It's a completely different animal to manage.
So before we can even talk about how to succeed, we have to look at the chaos. We have to understand why so many of these projects just go completely off the rails. Let's dig into the usual suspects. This quote nails it. We're trying to build these invisible things in a field that's honestly still pretty new, and the technology underneath it all is changing all the time. It's kind of like trying to build a car while the laws of physics are still being figured out. And that chaos leads to these classic points of failure. The goals were fuzzy from the start. The most important people weren't even asked for their opinion. The target just kept moving. Does any of this sound familiar? These are all symptoms of a project that's missing a solid management backbone. Okay, so what's the solution? It all starts with a blueprint. You can't just fire up a computer and start coding and just hope for the best. Nope, you need a plan. You need clear roles. You need rules for how you're going to work together. This is the foundation of good software project management. And this is where the project manager comes in. This person is the captain of the ship. They aren't always the best coder on the team, but they are the leader who's responsible for steering the whole project from an idea all the way to the finish line and making sure it doesn't sink along the way. So who is that project manager trying to keep happy? The stakeholders. And that's a key term you've got to know. A stakeholder is basically anyone, any person, any group who has a stake in the project's success. It could be the customer who's paying for it, the developers who are building it, or even an outside supplier. And you can pretty much split stakeholders into two big groups. You've got your internal folks, that's the project team, company management, people like that, and then you have your external ones, like the customers. A huge part of the project manager's job is to juggle all these different groups and keep them all in the loop. It is not an easy job.
So how do you get everybody on the same page from the very beginning? You do it with a project charter. Honestly, think of this as the project's official birth certificate. It's a short, simple document that says, here's what we're building, here's why, and here's who's in charge. It's the document that makes the whole thing real.
Okay, so the project is official, it's real. Now we get to a massive decision. How are we actually going to do this thing? Because there isn't just one way to build software. You have to pick your path, your methodology.
And they basically fall into two camps. Over on the left, you see the traditional way, often called waterfall. It's a straight line. You plan everything first, then you design everything, then you build everything. It's very step-by-step. But on the right, you've got Agile. See how it's a loop? With Agile, you build a small piece, you get feedback, you adapt, and you do it again and again and again. And the differences really come down to this. Traditional waterfall works great when you know exactly what you need up front, and that's not going to change. But Agile is designed for a world where things are a little fuzzy and change is just expected. It thrives on getting users involved and being super flexible. So you've got your blueprint, you've picked your path, now what? Well, how do you make sure you don't get totally lost halfway through? You need some kind of map, a compass, to check on your project's health as you go.
And one of the best tools for that is something called a work breakdown structure, or WBS. Now I know, that sounds super corporate and complicated, but the idea is actually incredibly simple. You take a huge, scary, overwhelming project, and you just break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
This house example is just perfect. How do you build a house? You don't just build the house. No way. You break it down. You've got the foundation work, the internal work, the external work, and then you break those down even more into things like plumbing and electrical and roofing. Suddenly this massive project feels like something you can actually do.
All right, now let's talk about tracking your progress. Let's play out a little scenario. Imagine you're halfway through your project schedule. You look at your plan and yep, it says 50% of the work should be done. So far, so good.
Seems like you're right on track. Or are you?
Because then you check the money, and you've already spent 75% of your entire budget. That's not good. So wait a second, you've only done half the work, but you've already burned through 3/4 of your cash.
So, are you in trouble? I mean, the answer seems like a big, obvious yes. This is exactly where a technique called earned value analysis comes in. It's a really powerful way to check the true health of your project by asking one simple question. For every dollar we've spent, have we gotten a dollar's worth of value back? And in this case, nope. You spent 75 cents to get only 50 cents of work done. It is the ultimate reality check.
But of course, let's be real, no plan is ever perfect. No matter how well you map everything out, something unexpected is going to happen. The final piece of this whole management puzzle is knowing how to handle it.
And that is all about risk management. The most important thing to understand here is that a risk is just a potential problem. It hasn't happened yet. See, great project management isn't about being shocked when problems pop up. It's about thinking ahead about what could go wrong and already having a plan for what you'll do if it does.
And finally, believe it or not, even finishing the project is a managed process. You don't just ship the app and have a party. You formally close the project, you review how things went, you measure whether you actually delivered what you promised, and, this is so important, you write down the lessons you learned so the next project can be even smarter.
And that's our whirlwind tour, which kind of leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. In a world that's changing this fast, is it even possible to have a perfect plan? Is it better to try and create that perfect, rigid waterfall-style plan from the start? Or is it smarter to just embrace the chaos, be agile, and have a perfect process for adapting to a world that will never be perfect? Something to chew on.